Honesty hour, I use dark humor to cope. And after my first visit to Logic in my review video, I used humor because I did not fully understand what happened to me in that service. But let me be a little bit vulnerable. First of all, I arrived to the service late, intentionally. I arrived a little after 11:30 a.m., so I walked in the middle of Pastor Flourish's sermon. The first thing I noticed was that the church was packed, and it was packed in a way where it felt like people were locked in, like people were listening to the preacher and they were focused. No room downstairs, so I was directed upstairs and I sat in the corner, literally in a dark corner, pulled out my phone and I was playing with my phone. Now, Pastor Flourish was preaching and it felt like my mind was split into two, where one side of me was like, you're just here to honor this invitation. After the service is over, you're going to leave. You're not going to talk to anybody, in and out, that's it. But the other part of my mind was paying attention to this preacher. I'd never interacted with any of Pastor Flourish's messages. As a matter of fact, since 2021, I've known about Logic and Pastor Flourish. I had friends who used to go to his church before they left the country, and they would talk about his sermons and they would share it with me, and we would go deep, we read the Bible. So I'd heard generally good things about him and his church. But before my first visit, I did not watch any sermons. I did not watch anything on Instagram, YouTube, nothing. At some point, it felt like my mind did not want to be divided anymore. My mind wanted to 100% listen to what Pastor Flourish was saying. But a small part of me was still fighting that because I was like, who is this guy? That's what I kept asking in my head. Who is this guy? I mean, I had heard about him from my friends, but this was the first time I heard his voice. I got up from my chair at one point, went to the balcony railing to look down. And when I saw Pastor Flourish, I was like, who the heck is this guy? Genuinely the question in my mind. Flight or fight mode was activated instantly. I started to ask myself, can you get out of this church without anyone noticing, without calling any attention to yourself? But another part of me was like, no, you need to stay here because something is happening that you need to experience. I walked into that church with all my walls up. My goal was to go in and out, text my friend, hey, Nkechi, I showed up, it was great, the end. I came in there with zero expectations, and at the end of the service, it felt like somebody had taken a hammer and gently tapped against that wall and a crack appeared. And I was desperately trying to patch up that crack. Like I felt like control was slipping through my fingers and I was trying to grab it. I was like, no, you're not supposed to feel anything right now. What's going on? Why do you feel this way? Why do you feel like things are shifting inside you? What is it about this man and the way he's preaching that is changing something inside you? These were real things that were going on in my mind. It was not supernatural. It was real time happening to me. One of the true signs of trauma recovery is your willingness to reconnect with people, to be open again, to trust again, to put your boundaries to the test. I did not know how deep my trust issues were, how deep my control issues were until I walked into that church, because never have I fought so hard to hold on to things that were no longer useful to me, simply because I said, no, I don't believe, and I'm not going to let this brilliant preacher break through me. I do not want that to happen. It was a fight. But every time I walked into that church, I found myself letting go. I found myself crying, but tears of release. I found myself able to let go of things that I never thought I would heal from. The only thing that has changed in the last 3 months is me going to this church regularly and listening to Pastor Flourish. At the end of that service, I was so spooked that I was ready to run out of the church. I walked out, I bumped into 3 of my day ones. I hadn't seen them since 2023. All of them excited to see me. Big smiles, big hugs. What matters more, that I'm going to a church or that I'm reconnecting with my friends, that I'm finding community? Yes, in the last place I expected to find community, but my goodness, they accept me. They're okay. Nobody's pressuring me to believe or not believe, to read the Bible, to pray, to talk to God. Zero pressure. They're just happy that I'm there. I remember the Wednesday service that crashed my unbelief system. Pastor Flourish was preaching something really deep and I was crying and my walls came crumbling down brick by brick. I was looking at the bricks on the floor, metaphorically, of course. And it was like anger, trauma, pain, embarrassment, shame, guilt, fear, everything. And I was like, are you going to rebuild these walls with these dead bricks? Or are you going to move forward with your life? Are you going to allow these people to love you? Are you going to accept that you're a likable person and you like people too? Are you going to accept that you don't need to be hyper independent anymore? That this part of your recovery journey, your joy journey, your happiness, you don't have to do it alone. And yes, church was the last place that you thought you were going to meet people that you genuinely like. But guess what? You're here now. Are you going to rebuild with old bricks or are you going to move forward? And guess what? I chose to move forward.